Welcome back to Irons United's YouTube channel. Today you're joining us for our 2018/19 Premier League predictions. Yes, we are predominantly a West Ham YouTube channel, but we need to know what the opposition's all about and potentially what they can offer against West Ham for the season. So make sure you're subscribed to our channel, make sure you get the comments in below. We are doing this live. If there's any mistakes, I'm sure you'll let us know if you can't hear us on the microphones. Myself and Stell being the biggest culprits of the microphone debate. But yeah, get the comments in, make sure you hit the like button, and we will start and just get straight in. We have a new format this year. You will see some new designs kicking about on our screen, but we'll go further into detail about that in the coming weeks in preparation for the new season. Anyway, Stell, welcome back to our first live stream of the new season. How are you feeling?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. It's been a great summer for more reasons than one.
You can say that again.
The weather's been good. The summer signings have been good. As West Ham fans, what have we got to worry about? It's been absolutely fantastic. So good summer. Looking forward to the new season.
Absolutely. So we're going to get straight in with this. Still, we're going to talk through. We're not going to go in strong detail with every single team, but we'll give you a little bit of a rundown of maybe our predictions for the league and how it's going to go for the season, and potentially where West Ham are going to finish, what players have brought in, and just really kind of a brief rundown on the Premier League. So we will get started. First and foremost, we're going to start with the relegation teams still. So we've had a brief kind of discussion beforehand, and we're probably in agreement that the bottom three, in both of our opinions, I'll let you explain to the viewers your bottom three.
Okay. Well, the bottom three that I'm going for are Cardiff, Huddersfield, and a rather late decision on Watford. I didn't have them there earlier in the week. But after looking at some of the signings that these clubs have made, I think I'm gonna put them there to go down with Cardiff and Huddersfield.
Now you're talking about Cardiff City. You've got Neil Warnock, who makes his return to the Premier League. Some stats on Cardiff City for you are: he has had 8 promotions. Neil Warnock. He's got 3 spells in the Premier League, sacked twice and relegated once. Last time Cardiff City were in the Premier League, they gave Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the managerial role. They've not really made particularly the greatest of, not had the greatest of summers still. So a lot of lower league transfers. Is that them just preparing for life in the Premier League?
I think it's them preparing for life in the Championship after the Premier League. They've signed players from the lower leagues. It doesn't look like they're confident enough to actually stay in the league. Yeah. And I think what they're going to be doing is, by the looks of things, is they're going to be surviving as best they can. They're going to try and nick a result or two. But the players that they've signed are all sort of lower league players. So unless they're wonder players that we have all missed out on, that's the reason why I put them at the bottom.
Following up from them, then what about Huddersfield? You've got, what's his name, Wagner working miracles last year. Although they just survived, but they had fantastic results against some of the top teams. Is it second season syndrome for Huddersfield?
It could well be. I think they've signed 1 or 2 interesting players like Congola and Eric Dahm, but I just think it's probably not enough depth for them. So, like you said, I think they struggled last season. They were sort of there, that like with us, with West Ham, they were there or thereabouts in the relegation area, in the relegation zone, and they scraped through. But you would have thought that, given that they only scraped through, that they would have gone stronger in the squad that they're buying, and they haven't really gone into a lot of depth. So that's why I've got them down as going down this season as well.
Yeah, and your third team for going down is Watford. My team is actually Brighton. I know you have Brighton kind of close to the bottom 3, but what's your reasoning behind Watford's kind of relegation this year?
Again, you look at the players they bought. they haven't brought anyone of worth. Deulofeu is back, but he was there last season on loan, so he's a new signing, I guess. But again, just like the other two teams, there's no depth there. So they're relying on the players that have done it for them in the past season. I think sometimes there are teams that do okay in the Premier League, and then their luck runs out. And having seen what the lack of activity in the transfer market for them, I think they are a club that are going to really struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got Brighton in the bottom three. I love Chris Hughton, and I don't think you really can, as a West Ham fan, not like the guy. He's just a proper football guy, general nice guy. But for me, they've just got a bit of a bang average squad. Now, I'm saying that on the back of them getting a fantastic victory against West Ham at London Stadium last year. But when they have to call upon 34-year-old Glenn Murray, now maybe I'm doing him a bit of an injustice here, but that seems to be their kind of calling up front. And again, it could be another bit of a second season syndrome for Brighton.
But also, Brighton have got rid of something like 17 players in the close season, and they brought in around 12 players. And I'm trying to look at some players that are screaming out at me, and they've got Balogun from Mainz and Andoni from Deportivo. They've got a few players, but they seem to have brought a few players that are, yet again, sort of players that probably haven't made it in their own teams. Like they got Jason Steele from Sunderland, they got David Button from Fulham, and so to me it feels as if they've got rid of a lot of players, but they've got a lot of players in who are probably similar level, rather than sort of going that next level up. So I agree with you. I think I've got them down in the league round about 15th, 16th, but they're a team that could probably struggle, and it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise if they actually went down.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we've got the teams that are battling in and around the relegation zone, somewhere that West Ham are very familiar with every single Premier League as we move through the years or the past. But I mean, I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to see if you agree with me. But a team that I really see struggling, who done really well last year, is Burnley. Sean Dyche at one point last season was rumoured to be one of the best, if not one of the best managers around in the league for what he worked with the budget that he had and where he produced them. But now they've got a Europa League campaign, or potentially, I mean, they've beaten Aberdeen and they're through to the next round. But if they keep going on through this Europa League campaign, they've not particularly made any fantastic signings. I mean, they've made 2 signings from my understanding, and Ben Gibson from Middlesbrough, again a lower league player. But do they have the strength in the squad to be able to deal with that and the Premier League and the Cups?
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think something's going to have to give, and it depends on how serious they're going to be on Europe, and it depends on how serious they're going to be in the other Cups. And they may have to decide to sacrifice the Cups to stay in the league. But I'm with you, because I originally had them to finish in the sort of the top half of the league. But I've changed my mind, just like I did with Watford. I changed my mind as where I thought they might finish, and I think again, I don't think they'll go down, but I agree with you. I think they'll struggle.
Well, I've got them as a close contender. In actual fact, I actually think Burnley will struggle so much that they're going to be looking at the other 3 teams that aren't that good around them. It's a big bold prediction for myself, but maybe it's the shock prediction that I've got for the lower teams, because I really do see them struggling. I don't think they've got the strength and depth, which is something we didn't have last year. Yeah,
the further they go on in Europe, the worse it's going to be for them. Yeah. Unless, of course, in the last few days of the transfer window, they end up buying half a dozen players. But even if they do, those players have got to settle in.
And let's not get this wrong. Still, we're already on Monday, so we've got Tuesday, Wednesday. We've got 3 more days of the transfer window to go. Things can change. Maybe Sean Dyche is sitting working, looking for the bargain. And we've all seen that there are bargains out there. A lot of the Premier League teams are starting to make those transfers, the higher level, paying the high level wages, which probably takes us nicely on to probably your prediction which was Crystal Palace, just above the relegation zone, roughly.
Another team that I think is going to struggle, and if they end up losing Zaha, by all accounts, he's talking. He wants to leave. That's going to be quite a blow for them. Now I know they've got Max Meyer, who is meant to be quite rated, but apparently no one else.
170k a week, apparently.
Well, he better be fucking good for that sort of money.
Absolutely.
And they got Guyata from Getafe, and we all know they got one of our ex-players, Chiati. Now, you know what? Chiati could be the sort of player for them that he might get a new lease of life, and he might get that engine running for them in the middle of the park. But again, they're not buying a huge amount of players. Again, they're relying on their squad, and again, that squad last season did okay. They survived, but no great shakes. So it's another team. There's a small pocket, a small number of teams that have sort of done the same, where they struggled last season. You would have thought they'd go in and strengthen for the Premiership, and they haven't done so. And Palace are the same. I've actually got them to be just above the relegation zone for next season.
Why Hodgson seems to work wonders in the Premier League, or just whatever really club he goes to. Well, maybe that's debatable, but like you said, Zaha could be the key to Palace's status in the Premier League. But if he is going to go, they're probably demanding a fee of £50 million. There was a rumour of West Ham, please let me just state that, a rumour of Antonio swapped with some money for Zaha, but I don't know if we fancy the Tom Daly of the Premier League coming to
we don't fancy him because he wouldn't exactly be the most adored player at West Ham if he came, and he thinks he's bigger than that, and he wants to. I know he failed at Man U, but he thinks he's a big fish, so he wants to go to Chelsea or whatever team want to buy him. He doesn't want to go to us lowly West Ham team. He wouldn't have it. And I don't think we'd have him. So
no,
fine.
Absolutely not. Moving up from there, myself and Stel beforehand spoke about the teams in and around mid-table, and we're both pretty much in agreement from pretty much 10th all the way down to the relegation zone. You're looking at teams like Leicester, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Southampton, Brighton, Burnley, Palace, Watford, Huddersfield, Cardiff. So we'll just do a quick overview of some of those teams, and we'll just start with Leicester City. They've lost Mahrez. Talk about him in a minute. What have they got left? What have they brought in still? I mean, it doesn't really look that fantastic for the former Premier League winners, which is really weird to say.
Yeah, they've lost Mahrez and they've gained Johnny Evans. So no, I'm being facetious. They got Pereira from Porto. I guess a decent player, but is he going to be is he going to be as good as someone like Mahrez? Probably not. They got Maddison, they got Danny Ward from Liverpool, got Gazal from Monaco. Again, another team that struggled last season, and they're not really. They've lost something like about 8 or 9 players, and of course Mahrez being the biggest of them, and they brought in like 5 players, and you can't really pinpoint any of the players they bought and say that's the player that's going to make a big difference for them. So I think another team that's going to struggle, I'm afraid. Yeah. It sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but all these teams from sort of 11th on downwards is pretty much the same sort of stories, pretty much the same sort of routine.
It kind of felt a little bit like West Ham last summer, really. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing us an injustice. I mean, I think last summer when we signed some of the players we did, probably was feeling a little bit optimistic, but nothing like potentially the way I'm feeling right now. Sorry, go for it, Stel.
But the players, I think we spoke about this so many times before. The players we brought in last season weren't necessarily the players we needed in certain positions. We had a goalie brought in that disrupted the goalkeeping situation. And I think maybe Hernandez was a good purchase, but then he was misused by our managers. I mean, we said it, didn't we? So I think it's quite different this season, but we'll get on to our signing soon.
I think with Leicester, you've got Harry Maguire's come off the World Cup. He's done really well. It's going to do him a power of confidence. A lot of teams are going to be sniffing around him. Will Leicester City sell over the next couple of days? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Will they sign a new contract?
Man U are in for him again. If Man U buy Maguire, then you've really got to say that they're in more trouble than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a hit with Mahrez gone and Maguire gone. If Maguire goes, that's a huge loss for them.
Yeah.
Massive loss.
Absolutely. Moving on then is to Bournemouth. Eddie Howe again another likeable manager in the Premier League. Although it seems to be that they've strengthened a lot from the lower leagues of the Premier League. Have they got enough in their arsenal?
They bought 2 players. They bought David Brooks from Sheffield United and someone who I've not heard of, Diego Rico from Leganes. So yeah, again, you can't say that they're building a strong squad to really do anything in the Premier League. It sounds as if they're going to just survive.
Yeah.
They've lost about half a dozen or so players as well. No, you can't see them doing much. And again, even though I predicted my bottom 3, I think Bournemouth could be another team that are going to be fighting a relegation battle.
Yeah. 2 more teams in the bottom kind of half before we start moving up to the top are going to be Newcastle and Southampton. So let's get straight on to Newcastle. Rafa Benitez, I mean, with the budget that guy has been given at Newcastle to finish in the top 10, like he did last year, to come up with the performances that they did at Newcastle, I mean, they absolutely tore us apart. They have done several years in a row. Can he get them top 10 for 2 seasons in a row? Where is the money from Mike Ashley? We've just seen that Ron, or their video should say Ron is done. Rondon from West Brom on a loan with Dwight Gale going the opposite direction. What are your thoughts on Newcastle still?
I should say I feel sorry for Benitez, but he didn't come to us, so I guess I don't feel that sorry for him. He's been promised, isn't he? I mean, shades of West Ham of the past. He's been promised shitloads and he's got nothing. And Rondon for Gale. Gale's not a bad player, so I'm actually surprised he's let him go in exchange for Rondon. You could argue that Rondon's maybe slightly better, but he's not gone.
I mean, I get your point on Dwight Gale, but do you think he's a championship player? Do you think that's more of a... I mean, who's got the better deal out of that? I mean, we were linked to Rondon. West Ham were linked to Rondon for a while. I mean, he's got Premier League experience. He can score goals in the Premier League.
I'm glad we didn't get him.
Yeah.
I don't fancy him. I think he's the sort of player that we've been linked with in the past before all of a sudden David Sullivan found his wallet and opened it. That's what Rondon was, and we've been sport rotten. And I know we're smiling got fucking smiles like Cheshire cats, but Rondon's not the sort of player that we're looking at. Clearly, I mean, so I'm glad we didn't get him. He'll probably do okay for Newcastle. He'll score him a few goals. He might get he'll get into double figures maybe.
Yeah.
But again, it's not enough to really sort of do much. I think they got a good loan signing in the young player from Chelsea, Kennedy.
2
could
years
be
in a row, yeah.
Yeah. So he'll be useful for them. But other than that, mid-table, he might just squeeze them up in the top 10. He might just, yeah.
And then moving on to Mark Hughes' Southampton. I mean,
well, I originally had them to go down, mainly because I don't rate Mark Hughes much as a manager. And again, they got Vestergaard from Borussia, Ebonusi from Basel, Stuart Armstrong from Celtic. Yeah, I think they'll do okay. They'll do okay.
Be interesting to see. I mean, we've got very similar teams from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-ish teams there sitting in the bottom 10. Teams that, probably haven't gone all out in the transfer window. And normally we would be suggesting that West Ham would be in or thereabouts, but we're not. So let's just get. Should we go right to the top and work our way down? Or shall we keep going up? It's up to you.
No, I want to finish off. I want to finish off with West Ham.
It depends on how optimistic you are this year, because we spoke about this before still, and I think the more I look into this league, and I'll tell you my reasons why I think we're going to finish where we're going to finish. But let's start with number one. Who are we predicting for number one for the Premier League of 2018-2019?
I don't think we can see any further than Man City again. I know there's a lot of people that are suggesting Liverpool, but I think City. They've only bought 3 players, but they, all they're doing is fine tuning. It's not as if they need to build a team.
Yeah.
So they got Mahrez, they got Gomez from PSG, they got Sandler from Zwolle, who I've not heard of before, but you don't think they're going to be bringing players in who are just going to make up the numbers. So for them, it's fine tuning, and that's.
And on top of that, still they've got one particular player that wasn't taken to the World Cup, who's been rested over the summer, who should have been there, in Sané.
Yeah.
And he's such a dangerous player.
And he's going to have a point to prove for not being picked.
He's going to have a point to prove, absolutely. Yeah. So if you've got your Premier League teams in, Sané could be a shout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adding Mahrez to that equation is obviously a creator of goals, a goal scorer himself. Put that into the mix, into that potion that Pep Guardiola is having, then that's fantastic. We hear Steph's cat's coming in to have his prediction or her prediction.
Oh mate, I thought I locked the cat out, but anyway. Yeah, she's running around.
Don't worry, that's cool, mate. That's cool. So yeah, Manchester City is going to be interesting. If any of you are interested, coming up soon is going to be a cool show coming up on Amazon Prime. Not that we are partnered or sponsored by them, but it's actually going to be All or Nothing, where it's going to be a in behind the scenes following Manchester City for the season. They do it a lot with the American football. It's a fantastic program. The way it's filmed is great. You'll get a really good insight into Pep Guardiola's setup, the background behind Manchester City, the background behind a football club and how it's ran. So definitely keep your eyes open for that one. That's a great one. So I've got Man City as well. Moving on to second place, I've put Liverpool in there, and still you've taken
United.
Manchester United. What's your reasoning behind Man United there?
I think, as much as he's a moany, miserable git, I think Mourinho isn't going to let City slip as far away from them this season as he did last. And I know he's moaning about transfers, but he's still got a few irons in the fire. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like we mentioned Maguire a minute ago, I think they've got Boateng, I think, has been linked to them.
Yeah, today they're supposed to be in talks with Boateng, yeah.
Yeah, they got Fred in, who's a great player, and they brought in Diogo Dalot in defence. I think don't underestimate Man U. I think they're the team. He's very good at Mourinho at deflecting, deflecting all the wrong attention away from his team. You're going to have Pogba coming back, World Cup winner. He's going to be up for it. And I know there's all this stuff about, he falls out with his players, etc. But I just can't see Man U being as far behind City as they were last season. And I know a lot of people favour Liverpool to either win it or come second. But I think we're going to be surprised by Man U. Never underestimate them.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've got Manchester United sitting in... Where have I got them? I've actually got them in 4th place. But I do agree with you. I mean, I'm a little bit confused at Mourinho's statements and comments he's making recently. I don't know if that's maybe him putting up a smokescreen to try and protect his players.
Exactly.
That's pretty much a Mourinho thing to do. He has strengthened. He's bringing back a confident Pogba. He's witnessed a Pogba playing a World Cup in his perfect position.
Absolutely.
He's going to have to maximise that. Lukaku scored goals at the highest stage. Martial, is he going to leave Manchester United? Is he not? Players there to prove a point. Rashford's had World Cup minutes.
Yeah.
Again, going to do him the world of good, So
Lingard, these players are going to come back. There's a lot of English players, French players that are going to come back with their, they're going to come back happy. because we had a decent World Cup, England. Okay, we would have liked to have gone further, but that's going to give the likes of Lingard, Rashford so much confidence.
Yeah.
And Fred. I mean, to add to that mix, and Maguire. If Maguire comes in, I mean, they're not. He hasn't got a bad team there. The moany, miserable git hasn't got a bad team there at all. So let's see.
He does like a moan, but as we all know, that is Mourinho down to a T, isn't it? So
yeah,
we'll see.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. That, like I said, I've got them sitting in fourth place. I've got them for a Champions League position, but we'll see. It's an interesting one. So you've got Manchester United. I've got Liverpool. We'll talk about Liverpool because you've got them in third place.
I have, yeah.
For me personally, they've strengthened one of their strongest positions they had to strengthen, which was their keeper, bringing in Alisson from Roma. It wasn't it, for £67 million?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be a massive improvement on Karius. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and slag off Karius, or I might do, because when I seen him against West Ham, even though we got beat, he was shit. But and I've seen a lot of more videos of him recently, even in pre-season, and he just looks like his confidence is gone.
Shot to pieces.
Yeah, absolutely gone.
Yeah.
And there's a player's demise straight away. He probably needs to leave to go to an external country just to get his career back on track. But he's bringing in him is a good one, and obviously on top of that, they've got the world's best defender in Lovren coming back. Sarcasm. I mean, his statements in the press were crazy. People were giving him, like, I am in the World Cup final and I am the best defender, one of the best defenders in the world. Yeah, yes, okay, mate. Okay, we believe you. But for me, I mean, they've got Keisha, a £57 million player, another midfielder to the equation. But the one for me personally that I think is going to add a lot, which might go under the radar, is Shaqiri, because, and I'll give you my reasons behind Shaqiri, and I know we had a lot of talk about this because West Ham were linked to him. But this guy was involved in over 60 goals for Stoke in his career, a mixture of 30 goals and 30 assists-ish, borderline give or take a few. So that's involved in a lot of goals, one in every 2 games. I think he's got something like 120 appearances for Stoke City. Add that to Liverpool's mix, with players doing all the work around him, letting him find those penetrating passes when and if he plays. Because I'm not saying he's going to start every single week, but to bring a player of that quality off the bench onto the park to give you that extra bit of va-va-voom can only add to their strength. But the one player, again, another player, is Daniel Sturridge. Got a point to prove that, can he rekindle the fire that he had when he was there, when Suarez was there?
Every player you've mentioned has been an attack-minded player, and of course, without Lovren, they're going to fail, aren't they?
Well, not the best, yeah.
And this is the problem. He's brought in Fabinho, who's a defensive midfielder. He's strengthened up in attack with the likes of Shaqiri, etc. But he hasn't actually, unless I'm mistaken, he hasn't brought in any other defenders. Okay, he's got Alisson in, but I don't think he's brought in any other defenders. So
I believe he's got this confidence though in Van Dijk. I mean, I like Van Dijk. I don't think he's the be all and end all, but
no,
I think he's capable
he's
of,
decent. He's decent.
I think he's capable of a mistake, a little bit like Ogbonna.
Now, Ogbonna should have been Hammer of the Year last season. You know that.
But Van Dijk alongside Lovren. We should have a separate show on Ogbonna versus Reid. Just for any of you fans that are watching who don't support West Ham, Stell's a massive Ogbonna fan. I'm a massive Winston Reid fan, and we have battle after battle after battle after battle on it, and it's actually entertaining. So we might do a separate video on it. Anyway,
we should do that.
Yeah, we should do that. So you're right. They haven't really strengthened in the defence, and maybe he's paying a lot of.
I think he's got a decent defence, but he just it just struck me. Yeah, he's got a great keeper in, but that's just the one thing that kind of surprised me, that he hasn't brought in another key defender. I know he got Van Dijk in, but like you say, maybe he's got a lot of confidence in the defenders he's got. But I think it seemed to me, when I looked at their transfers, it seemed to me that the manager's going out to score more goals than his opposition, regardless of how many they may get. So if we get 2 against them, he was going to go out and score 3 or 4, that sort of thing. And I think that seems to be his mentality, Klopp. That's why I haven't put them to win, because you can't rely on that. I know the Man U of years back, that's how they did it. You score 1, we'll score 2, that sort of thing. I'm not so sure. He's got a great attacking lineup, Klopp. I mean, the strength in midfield and forward line is immense. But I just think his defence might let him down for some crucial points here and there. And that's why I've got them down as 3rd rather than 1st or 2nd.
So we've discussed Liverpool. I've got them 2nd. You've got them in 3rd. I'll tell you my 3rd place, because I think you've got them in 5th place, and that's Arsenal.
Yeah.
Now, I'll start with this one if you don't mind.
Go ahead, mate.
Let me find my notes, because they come with a new manager. They've got rid of their I don't know what they wanted to call him, Messiah in Arsene Wenger, but he's now gone. That era is finished, and they've brought in Emery. And do you know what? I love listening to his press conferences. I'm not going to lie. I really do. He's trying his best to learn the language, and he's doing really, really well.
And he's a bit like you then.
And he's so softly spoken, a bit like me. And no, he's just great. And he's brought in, I feel like he's strengthened in the areas that they've needed to strengthen. They've brought in, here we go, Stel, you'll like this one because I can't pronounce the names.
Go on.
Torreira, midfielder.
Torreira, yeah.
Torreira from... and this is a really tough one. Actually, I'll leave this one to you. This one is a good one for you.
Do you mean Socrates Papastopoulos?
That's the one. That's the one. I wonder how you know that name. And adding a really good defender into that mix. But the key for this is probably going to be a lot of their signings that they made last season, and in particular Aubameyang. You're going to slag me off for this pronunciation, but I actually think he is going to set the Premier League on fire this year. I honestly believe it. He is top-notch striker. He connects the midfield. He scores goals. He's pacey. He's tricky. He attacks. And he's just one player I think you need to really, really watch out for this year.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because a lot of the players he's bought have been defenders or defensive midfielders. So he must think that he's got a very solid front line. So I agree with you, mate.
You've got to look at that forward line, though, when you add Lacazette to that. I mean, Lacazette was struggling to start at certain points in the season. One thing I liked about Emery was, and to our benefit, was he's taken the big step in getting rid of Jack Wilshere, because he knows he wants to set up Arsenal in a particular way. By getting rid of Jack Wilshere means he can do what he needs to do. So he's got the balls to be able to do that. But adding players like Aubameyang and Lacazette to the equation, where he's strengthened elsewhere, where a lot of other teams are going to be trying to strengthen moving forward. I don't believe he needs to, because I mean, what did they sign Aubameyang for? £60 million?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
or he scored something. Did he not score nearly double figures last year from January through to the end of the season?
He's going to be a shit hot striker, like you say. I agree. I totally agree with you. Which is why, like I said, he didn't feel the need to strengthen there, because he's got some decent. I mean, if he's looking at getting rid of strikers, Perez and his name's gone, the English player,
Danny Welbeck.
Welbeck, if he's
I'll pronounce that one.
Thanks for that. If he's looking at getting rid of strikers. Then he must think that he's got enough there to do really well. So I might be doing them a disservice, because I put them down for 5th. And maybe in hindsight that's a bit of a disservice to him, to Arsenal. The reason why I put them down as 5th is because I just wonder how quickly the manager will take to the Premier League. Not having managed, I know you can get managers that come in, and they win the league straight away, like Conte did with Chelsea, etc. But I don't know. That's why I put them 5th. But maybe from what you've said, I'm maybe doing them a disservice.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting one. It might be the year that Arsenal have been craving. They've maybe Arsene Wenger's signings will eventually come to fruition, and maybe that's all they needed. Maybe he needed one more year, and he could have proven all the fans wrong. But hey, we'll never know. We'll see now. Emery's there. Fourth place, I've got Manchester United, so we won't go over that again. But you've got Chelsea.
Yeah.
Who I have actually put into sixth place.
Interesting.
Yes.
And you might be more right than I am. I might be giving Chelsea more credit than they might deserve, because they brought two players in, one that we know, Robert Green, as a backup keeper.
England's number 6.
He's better than Joe Hart, that's for sure, even at his age now. And Jorginho, who from Napoli. Now, of course, Chelsea being Chelsea, you can't imagine that would be the only players that they bring in before the end of the transfer window. But I just think Chelsea's know-how is likely to sort of keep them, there or thereabouts in the Premier League. I'm beginning to doubt myself now. I'm beginning to maybe think that I should swap them over with Arsenal.
There's some rumours kicking about, though, that Courtois has not turned up for training today. If that's true and his agent's trying to push through a move to Real Madrid, they've also named, is it Jack Butland? Or was it Jack Butland as their number one choice? I can't remember. I've seen it somewhere. They've got another keeper as their number one choice. So they're putting the statements out that potentially they're already looking for a new number one. Sarri's come in from Napoli with a decent record, but he's not won.
He's not won anything.
Anything. Yeah. That doesn't mean that he's not going to do anything. It's if he keeps players like Hazard and Willian. I mean, he's subject to big bids from Barcelona and potentially Manchester United as well. So I don't know. I just see another season of struggle for Chelsea. I think maybe they were slightly premature with the Conte thing, but maybe they had to get rid of Conte. Things went too far with him.
But they got rid of him so late in the day, and Sarri's already said that he's going to struggle to, get to grips with his surroundings, etc. But you're right. If Courtois is going, and if if other players do go, maybe they won't even finish in the top 6. Yeah. So it'd be an interesting one to look out for.
It certainly will. That brings us to, I mean, I'll let people know where I've put West Ham, and we'll come back to West Ham at the end, and I'll let people know where Stell's put West Ham, and we'll come back to that at the end. So I've actually chosen to put West Ham in 5th place. I'll tell you why after we do the rest of the team. Stell, you've chosen to put West Ham in
7th.
In 7th, and again we'll go back to that and tell you why. I've said to you I've put Chelsea in 6th place. You've got, it looks like, Spurs in 6th place, where I've actually put them in 7th place.
Yeah, and I hope you're right.
And I hope I am.
really do.
I hope I'm wrong, though, because I hope they go lower down. But
well, it'd be even better if they struggled, But again, they bought no one. I think they're the only. Are they the only team in the Premier League that haven't bought a player yet?
I think so. Yeah. I think. But do you know what? Again, I'm going to make this statement. I mean, do you need to buy players in order to progress here every single year when you've got a good squad? Not particularly.
No.
But when you look at Spurs' squad, who has just come back from the World Cup, they've got several players that have played for several different teams. They've also got the big, massive task of moving stadiums a month and a half into the new season, going from Wembley to the new White Hart Lane, which, hold my hands up, looks very, very impressive as a stadium. I can't help but feel a little bit jealous of that. But, I just think that without bringing in those extra players, the depth in the squad that potentially they need. There's rumours, I don't know if you noticed the other night, they said that they're potentially going to listen to offers for Danny Rose, Dembele.
That's right.
As well. So if they're going to get rid of them, maybe they are going to do some late transfers in the window. I can't foresee them not taking someone before the window closes still. I think they'll probably will sign someone. It's
but I don't even know what players are linked. I genuinely haven't read any. Why would I follow their news anyway? But I actually, like with other teams, you hear such and such a player is linked with this team, that team, or the other team. I haven't actually heard any players being linked with them, unless I'm mistaken. And that's really a surprise. They're looking at offloading players, and yet there's no one that sticks out in my mind that they're looking to bring in. So that it's a strange one. It's a bit of a strange one.
Absolutely. Let's move on from the Spuds because we ain't a Spuds show. So sorry, Tottenham fans, not really. Anyway, 7th, 8th, and 9th. I think we're pretty much in and around the same teams here. We've got Fulham, Wolves, and Everton. I believe we're pretty much in the same book. I'm going to go for Fulham to finish above the 3. Basing my information on the fact that when the players, the team that Fulham had, albeit they didn't run away with the league last year in the Championship, but they had a good core throughout their team. They've got a youth player like Sessegnon who looks like he is up for it, who's going to be up for it in the Premier League, showing off his talent, showing off his skills. They've added Mawson, a player that West Ham have been chasing for pretty much the whole summer window. They've added Seri, who's another player that West Ham added, who looked like it's going to be a proper steal for them. They've got Andre Schürrle from Borussia Dortmund, who's got massive Premier League experience, who's still playing in his prime age of his career. He's done really well in Borussia Dortmund. I don't really know what that whole situation was about. Maybe he just wanted to move back. Someone like Schürrle runs at players, runs at the defenders, causes them mayhem. Fulham know him really well. He scored a hat-trick against them a couple of seasons ago when he was playing for Chelsea. So for me, I think that the manager, and here's my pronunciation again, Jokovic, you like it? Add Mitrovic to the equation as well.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, I got that one right. For 20 million, he scored double figures from January through to the summer last year. He's used to the side there. He's also got Premier League experience. I think they've just done really, really good business that will mix really well with the squad that they've currently got. Hence the reason I think they'll finish above the Everton and Fulham.
Yeah, totally agree. I think there are 3 teams in the who have done really well in the transfer window. Fulham are one of them. West Ham are another one, and Wolves, that we'll get to in a minute, are another team. You can say that Fulham have made some really, well, you've named them all. They've made some really, really impressive signings. I mean, hats off to them. I didn't realise they had that much power financially to go out and get these players. And you could, every single one of those players that they brought in, you wouldn't have minded them being at West Ham. I know Dan of Fandangos was crazy about Seri. He did a show, a transfer window special about him, and he really rates him. We all know about Mawson, as you said, Schürrle. I wouldn't have minded Schürrle at West Ham. He's a decent player. We wouldn't have minded Mawson. Probably wouldn't have minded Mitrovic either. So you've got to say hats off to Fulham, and they're gonna be. We talked earlier, about the teams that are going to go down or going to struggle. Fulham have come up and they've gone, we mean business, and we're going to bring in some quality players that are not only going to help us to survive, actually help us to progress. That's why I've got them up there. I think I've got them at 8th to finish at 8th, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do finish at 8th at all.
Yeah, I've got them in the same position as you. Below them, I've actually got Everton. I don't know who you've got next, but I've got...
below them I've got Wolves.
Right. So I've got Wolves there. So we'll talk about the 2 teams. We'll go Everton first. £50 million for Richarlison, who's not had a sniff at goal or an assist since December. Albeit, if we take the first half of the season and the sort of player that he is, and if they can rekindle that partnership or that relationship or that style of player, can he bring something to that side? Am I drawing it? Am I drawing anything?
Everton don't know how to. Goodness me, if there's ever a team that doesn't know how to spend its money, it's them.
Yeah.
50 million for Richarlison.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a mate I play football with on Thursday nights, who's a Watford fan, and he said we have stolen money off Everton for Richarlison. 50 million. Well, I hope for Everton we're all proved wrong, and he bangs in 20 odd goals, but I can't see it. I just think they bought a whole load of players last season. They didn't gel. Okay, they haven't gone out and bought a whole load of players this time round, but
15 million pounds.
No, for him.
But they've got Silva, and do you know what's going to be interesting? 8th of December, Everton Watford, because I don't think there's any love lost between the two clubs, especially.
Yeah.
I feel like that's potentially been Watford's demise, was the whole tapping up situation by Everton. Not that I'm accusing them of doing it, but they did. Anyway. So that'll be interesting. Let's go on to Wolves, because Wolves, who have currently signed the whole of Portugal and all of Portugal's aunts and uncles in distant countries who have been connected to them, who fought them.
They got in there just before we did, apparently.
Yeah, they've
with all the Portuguese players.
I don't know what's going on. I mean,
go on, mate. Go on.
Another player another interesting one. I don't know if you will know this as fans watching, but they signed a Afobe, and 5 days later sold him. So they signed him from Bournemouth, and 5 days later sold him to Stoke City.
Really?
Yeah. It was like one of the first signings of the summer window. So yeah, see, you can see I've done my homework there still, can't you?
Yeah, mate, you have, because I've still got him down as being a Wolves player.
No, he's gone. He's well gone. He was sold 5 days later, literally signed and sold. Anyway, They've signed some of Portugal's. I don't know. Go for it. Tell me.
Matinho of Monaco.
Yeah.
Great player. Good, decent player.
Yeah, lots of experience.
Patricio, even though we don't know exactly what's going to happen there, because Sporting are talking about suing any club that's taken on any of their players. But Patricio's a decent goalie. They got Willy Bolly from Porto. I mean, they got Paulo Alves from Liverpool. I mean, it's a Portuguese revolution, isn't it? Down there.
But here's my opinion on Wolves. They have spent money. They have bought some decent players. They ran away with the championship last year. What I'm about to say,
and they played quality football too.
Yeah, and they add into the players of Navas, who is a top quality midfielder. I just think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to be that package of the Premier League that came up that people are thinking, because they spent this money, that they're going to be, they ran away with the league. Yeah, they played great football, but maybe that is their standard. I don't know. Maybe I'm being contradictory to my opinion on, say, Fulham, etc. But I just think Wolves are going to be sitting in 9th or 10th place, solely down to the fact that there's 10 potentially worse teams than them. It's a big, bold statement.
Yeah, I disagree. I think they're going to merit their place in 9th. I think they will finish in the top half, but I think they'll merit it. Yeah. I don't think the way we talked about some of the other teams from 11th place downwards, it's quite dire for them. They haven't strengthened, they haven't sort of gone out of their way to try and really improve. It's almost as if they're trying to sort of get by. Whereas Wolves are showing intent. I mean, they won the championship with a canter. They played really attractive football, and they brought in some pretty decent players. So I think, like Fulham, they're making a statement. I think they're making a statement that they're in the Premier League. I don't think they expect to get into a European place or anything like that. But I think they're showing intent that they're here for good. Rather than being a sort of a yo-yo team.
Right. Well, that pretty much rounds up all 19 Premier League teams. Before we jump on to our beautiful West Ham, I'm going to give everyone a rundown of how we see the league finishing. So I'll give you my rundown from 20th up to 1st. So I've got Huddersfield, Cardiff and Brighton to get relegated. I've got Burnley just sitting above them, who just survived because the 3 teams below them. Watford the same, then Bournemouth, Southampton, Newcastle, Crystal Palace. Then I've got Leicester City, and then it moves up to Wolves, Everton, Fulham, Spurs in 7th place, Chelsea in 6th place. Skip 5th because we know who that's going to be. 4th, Manchester United, Arsenal 3rd, Liverpool 2nd, with Manchester City finishing in 1st place. Stell, do you want to do a rundown? Do you want me to do yours for you?
I've changed my mind on what we spoke, but only 2 teams are swapped over. So relegation, 2019 and 18. Cardiff, Huddersfield and Watford. I think Watford are going to go down with Huddersfield and Cardiff. 17th place Palace, 16th Burnley, 15th Brighton, 14th Southampton, 13th Newcastle, 12th Bournemouth, 11th Leicester. Having said that, I can see Leicester, Southampton, and Palace fighting. Possibly, if they don't do well, I can see them probably slipping from the positions that I've said and maybe struggling to just stay out of the bottom three. And then 10th place Everton, 9th Wolves, 8th Fulham, 7th the Hammers, 6th Spurs, and I've changed this round, 5th Chelsea, 4th Arsenal, 3rd Liverpool, 2nd United, and champion City.
Which beautifully takes us on to our beautiful West Ham United. I'd love to have seen what our video would have been like this time last year. Anyway, I have predicted that West Ham will finish the 2018-19 season Premier League in 5th place. Wow, it's optimistic, but I am going to stick by my guns. I'll explain to you why in a minute. Still,
before you do that, we got a message from Davey G Hammer.
Right.
He reckons that Newcastle, Southampton, and Cardiff are going to go down. So not too dissimilar, I guess, from
a couple of teams that are struggling. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cheers for your comments.
And then we got someone called Luke Bailey who said Tumbleweed, but I've not heard of that team.
So yeah, like I said, takes us on nicely. You've got West Ham predicted for 7th place. So let's have a brief. Well, you know, we're doing quite well with the show. Let's talk about our club, our beautiful West Ham United. Pellegrini came in. He's got Premier League experience. He's got trophies left, right and centre throughout most of his career. He's worked wonders with clubs with not really big budgets. He's worked wonders with clubs that have big budgets. David Sullivan and David Gold decided to jump in and bring in Pellegrini. And there has been this saying the Pellegrini effect. Is it the Pellegrini effect still? Is this the reason why we're signing the players we're signing? Is this long overdue as a West Ham fan?
It's got to be, hasn't it? I mean, what other reason can there be? You know, every season, I remember the board saying, "Well, we can't sign players. You know, fair play. Fair play comes in, and not fair play, whatever you call it."
Shit.
Yeah, but you know, all that stuff. You know, they kept giving reason after reason after reason after reason. Let's look at our managers. We had Big Sam. You know, he got us out. You know, he got us to where we needed to be back in the Premier League, but he kind of did it on a shoestring. Then Bilic came in, and you know, all the rumours are that they weren't his first. Bilic wasn't the board's first choice manager, so I kind of guess there's no surprise there that they didn't give in a huge amount of money to bring players in. And then Moyes, you know, they weren't going to give Moyes money. I think they kind of realised that Moyes was going to be a stopgap. So Pellegrini comes in, and as you've just said yourself, every club he's gone to, he's won something, or he's got his team into the Champions League or Europe or whatever. You know, Pellegrini's not fucking around, is he really?
Or as his director of football.
Yeah, who's he lost? Yeah. So. And all of a sudden, the board have got £100 million in their back pockets to spend. You know, it can't be a coincidence, can it? And you kind of, I hate myself giving the board any credit, but you've got to give them credit where credit is due here. They've spent money, and I even thought they were going to spend money by getting rid of, and then balancing the books by getting rid of a whole load of players. They haven't even done that.
No, that doesn't. You know, but still, let's remind ourselves of last season, because even though we signed those 5 players, we went into each of those 2 windows looking for players because our squad was not deep. We did not have a big squad. So, yes, what you said is correct. We all believed we were going to sell players, but that wasn't down to the fact that we needed to sell players. We thought the board were just going to be greedy and take the money.
Yeah.
They've shot us down. There are still 3 days to go. I'm still not a fan, but I've got to give them credit because they've turned around, they've went and got us the manager, they've spent £100 million. They look like they've not stopped spending. They look like there's going to be some more signings coming in. One thing about West Ham, and I'm trying to come away from my personal opinion here. I think for West Ham, for many a year, we'll all probably agree on this. We've always had a really good core. There's always been a core of players throughout our team that has been a solid core, but our team has been made up with a lot of dead wood.
Yeah.
And that has been happening season after season. You can stem all the way back to Avram Grant, Zola, Sam Allardyce. It just kind of always has been that kind of core of players throughout the middle of the park, but we've never gone out and invested correctly with finances backed up. There is that argument to say, should we have done this 3 seasons ago, 2 seasons ago? Well, the argument is yes, we should have, in my opinion. So it's 2 seasons, not too late. This is probably this. I think I said to you, Stella, I said to all the guys in our group chat, this was the summer that they had to do it. They had to, for me, they had to put the money in that they've put in. They had no choice in the matter.
Yeah. Agreed.
And they've done it. And it's who they've bought as well, which is what I'm really intrigued about, because they haven't just gone all out and gone, yeah, we'll take you, we'll give you this. There's £60 million, there's £50 million, there's £40 million. They've done that with a couple of players, but every single player they've brought in is going to add something to our squad. And yeah, hands up, I can admit when they've backed the side, it's tough for me to do because I'm not a fan of the board, and I'm still not a fan of the board. I believe what money they have spent has been their savings that they've been putting in their piggy banks. And probably generated a lot of money coming off the interest they've made on that money in the bank. But they've invested it back into our side. And is there any particular players you want to talk about that we have brought in?
I think I said to you and the guys, the one player that excites me is Yarmolenko.
Absolutely.
I know we got Wiltshire, who's going to be. I tell you what, he's looked decent in pre-season. And I know we paid a king's ransom for Anderson, but Yarmolenko is the player that excites me. He looks like, I tell you something, he looks like he's going to be battling Arnautovic to be like the king.
See it. The king.
The king bastard
That's
of West Ham.
That's the one.
He just seems to have that attitude about him.
He does.
And
confident,
so confident, so skillful, decent player. And I know we might get a lot of fans saying, oh, well, in pre-season we haven't seen it, and no, we haven't. But when that player is up to speed, I reckon he's going to be shit hot. I reckon he bangs in goals with both feet for fun. Yeah. And okay, he didn't do too well in Germany last season. Fair enough, and people will say, but he hasn't proved it, blah blah blah. But when he played for Kiev, and you have a look at some of the games he's played for Kiev, that he is.
And he's he not the second top goal scorer for Ukraine?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not second top goal scorer with like 10 goals. It's 30 plus goals.
Yeah. And I reckon when he's up to speed, I think he's gonna. You know what we like at West Ham? We like an exciting player
who tries,
and he's an exciting player.
Yeah, I agree.
Now with him on one side, and then of course you got Anderson on the other. Jesus Christ, mate. I mean, it's just like it's. I think we're gonna come away smiling more games than we're gonna go away hacked off from games this season.
And that probably shows from my prediction and your prediction, 5th and 7th for the league, because you've mentioned another player there. We've broken our transfer record twice this summer, but we've brought in the man. It looks like Pellegrini's main man was Felipe Anderson, the Brazilian player from Lazio. I mean, his statistics throughout his career, he's only a young lad. He's played well over 100 games in Serie A. He's scored a ton load of goals. He's assisted a ton load of goals. For that age, coming all the way from South America to play in the Italian league, to have those statistics, to be a dribbler, to attack the defences, to cause mayhem. Now, I'm one that doesn't really particularly watch many preseason games. I do sometimes just to see the odd player here, there, and everywhere. I don't judge a player based upon their preseason games, ability, because you can lose every single game and do really well, or you can win every single game and not do well. But I just think you look at Felipe Anderson and you've seen those glimpses of absolute beautiful football that he's got the ability for in the pre-season friendlies. Yeah, I know the odd game he didn't play fantastically well, but like we said, it's pre-season friendly. He's trying out new things. But we've taken this player for what, 40+ million pounds from Lazio. He's saying all the right stuff. He seems to be passionate about West Ham. I know players are going to do that, but he excites me. He absolutely excites me. And what you said there, add Yarmolenko to the equation. And then we haven't even got started because now we've got Jack Wilshere. And, and we got him for free.
Yeah.
And he's a creator. It's just like...
I'll tell you something, and I know that Arsenal fans have said it. We've got a bargain. They didn't want him to go, or they were sad that he left. And I'm surprised that Arsenal couldn't find a way to make use of him. And we have picked up a player. Let's hope he stays fit, because if he stays fit, I've actually got him down as being the player that's going to give us the most assists in our team. If he stays fit, he's going to be an absolute dream. The way he'll link up. I think the last friendly game we played, where Arnautovic was playing as a number 10, and there was, can imagine him with Wiltshire just behind him, playing off each other, feeding the front man, feeding the wide players. I'm salivating, mate. It's going to be. We love great football, and we've got the players that are going to play great football.
And still,
this season.
Rewind a couple of seasons ago, we signed about 7 or 8 players of the Nordvits, of the Gokhan Tors,
Faguli, etc. Yeah.
And do you know what? I liked Faguli personally. He seems to be doing well in Turkey, where he's playing just now. But this is a whole new ball game. This is the potentially. I don't want to get carried away, but the cream in the crop. It's
mate.
Add that, and going back to my point on West Ham, add that to the core that we've got. Add that to the players that are there that do perform, that can perform. We've got the Arnautovic's. I'm going to bring up a player in a minute. We've got, and do you know what? We've got the Mark Nobles who will perform, who, in my opinion, has got the ability to actually perform at the top level around all these other players that will allow him to do what he needs to do.
Well, the thing with Noble is we saw how he was when Payet was there, and how Payet made Noble raise his game. And now Noble's got players around him like Wiltshire, Arnautovic is already there, like Yarmolenko, etc., Anderson and so on, who can probably make him raise his game again. But I think we're going to see a slightly different Noble this season. I know we've been talking about what makes a defensive midfielder, and I've always said he's not a classic defensive midfielder. But seeing him in pre-season, he's sitting back. He's not trying to dart forward, go past the halfway line too much. In pre-season friendlies, he's been playing as a pivot, and the interesting thing that we talk, all the players that we bought, all the different positions. The one position that I think we were all crying out for at the end of last season was we need a defensive midfielder, and Pellegrini hasn't brought one in yet. And it's interesting. Maybe he thinks like the likes of Noble, Obiang, who I really hope doesn't go, because I think he's got a lot to offer, and Rice, Declan Rice. I think those 3 players are probably going to provide the coverage that I think Pellegrini is going to be looking for just in front of the back 4. So maybe Noble's got a new role to play.
Absolutely.
And
one of the key things, I suppose, is bringing Pellegrini in so early. Something that I was delighted that we made the decision to do, because he's had the chance to get started at pre-season himself. He's brought. I love when a manager comes in and signs players really early, because it gives them the chance to gel as a team and get to know each other. And that's why I'm feeling confident. Add that to the equation as well. That's why I'm feeling confident for the season.
Yeah.
We've strengthened at the back. We've brought in Fabianski. It's borderline whether people want to say it's a strengthening, but you've got someone with Dan Fandangos, who's a part of our group at Ange United. He's got his own YouTube channel. He is a massive Premier League watcher, and he really is kind of like a good fan. And I believe a lot of the information he gives, and he says, and a lot of Swansea fans have said that if it wasn't for Fabianski, they would have had even worse this season than what they did. He's more of a a shot stopper. He's a good, very very good goalkeeper. He's a confident goalkeeper. That's something that we've missed when we had Joe Hart. But it's going to bring an interesting battle between him and Adrian again for the season to come. But moving up in front of them, let's just get straight onto it. The general, Balbuena and Diop, add them to Ogbonna and Winston Reid, who is injured for a while. What's going to happen in defence?
I think Balbuena is going to surprise us. I think you can't take a lot from pre-season. You know, players, they're new to their surroundings, etc., etc. And I've read some things on social media that people don't rate Balbuena. I've read that people don't rate Diop, but I reckon they're both going to come good. And of the two, I think for what was it, 3.5 million, Balbuena. I think he's going to be. He looks like a player that no nonsense.
Just the nickname alone, I love. I'm like the general. I'm like, oh
yeah.
Man.
Well, and people are going to say, well, he comes from Corinthians, comes from the Brazilian league. What do you know? How good are they? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, we need to be a hard geezer.
He's going to be a hard. Exactly. Yeah. He's going to be a hard defender, and you're going to have the flair of Diop, but you're going to have the hard, sort of proper defender, so to speak, of Balbuena.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be another surprise, to be honest with you. Because I think people have it in their minds. Oh, you can only be a great player if you're bought for 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, etc. You can pick up bargains for a few million, and I reckon Balbuena is likely to be one of those bargains.
And add that to Linford Christie, the right back position, Ryan Fredericks. For any of you younger
I was worried fans, where you were going there.
For any of you younger fans who don't know who Linford Christie is, he's an ex-Great Britain Olympian, 100-metre runner, really fast, and obviously, as we know, Ryan Fredericks is very, very, very fast wing back. So that'll be an interesting. But the one player I really want to talk about at West Ham is my potential favourite player, the one that I think is going to reap the benefits of all these signatures. And his name is Chicharito. Javier Hernandez. I think he is going to absolutely revel in this opportunity. He is going to love Pellegrini. I mean, the biggest statement that West Ham could have done was give Chicharito a welcome back video.
Yeah.
That was a signature. That was a sign to the fans to go, Chicharito's staying, and he's a big part of my plans, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't do that with any other player that came back from pre-season. This guy, they were on top of him during the World Cup. They were tweeting everything he did, when he was going to sleep, when he was having his burritos, whatever he was doing at the World Cup. West Ham were tweeting it, Facebooking it. They were all over him like a shot, knowing that they had to keep this player, because again, when you look at his stats, when he plays full of confidence, you feed him the ball, he will score the goal. You add that to the mix of Arnautovic and the players in behind him, I think he's only but going to grow as a player and an individual West Ham and score goals that we've been craving for years, him and Arnautovic up front. Someone put on our post the other day, could Arnautovic and Hernandez be the first 30-goal partnership we've had in a long time?
Yeah.
I mean, we could be sitting here still in a year's time looking back at this video going, wow, how wrong were we? But
I don't think we're going to be, mate. I know it sounds arrogant, but I don't think we're going to be. I've got Arnautovic down as our top goal scorer for the season. I reckon he's going to get around about 18 goals, I think I said. And you can't see Chicharito not getting double figures.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not the first? But it's going to depend on how Pellegrini plays them, because I don't think he's going to start with both of them up front for every game. So of the two, I reckon Hernandez is likely to start more on the bench than Arnautovic will. It will be Arnautovic always being picked. And